In today's episode of Getting Started with Ressio, we're going to cover the basics of doing an estimate within Ressio. So in our same Bauman Family Beach House project, I have navigated to the Estimate tab. Now, traditionally in a project within Ressio, you're going to use templates to easily copy an estimate template into a project. One of the unique things about Ressio is that every single project automatically becomes a template within Ressio. So whether you set that project up as a template on purpose, or if you're just copying over another one of the projects that you've worked on, it's a really easy way to pre-format and get everything taken care of in a nice formatted structure, including pricing and assignments and categories and all of those kind of things. However, today, to showcase this step-by-step process, we're going to manually create an estimate within Ressio. So what we're going to do is start at the category level by adding a category. In Ressio, we can operate on what's called either a two-tier or a three-tier estimating system. But regardless of which system you operate on, we always start with the category. Category, also known as division, is a really great organizational structure that can group things together. So for your projects, you might use something like the NAHB divisions, the CSI commercial divisions, the NARI remodeling divisions, or you might even use your own custom categories, maybe doing a project room by room or using your own organizational structure. In this instance, I'm going to double click into that dark gray category section and put in general requirements. So that's going to be my first category. I would simply add additional categories by hitting add category and creating a nice tiered estimate structure. But in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and scroll over to the add cost item, which is this plus button here that allows me to add a cost item underneath that category. So in this instance, I might put into general something like design. And as you can see, when I start typing in my Ressio account, you're going to see some items start to pre-populate in here. That's because I'm actively using what's called my cost catalog within Ressio, which is something that allows you to create a series of pre-templated items that are easy to drag and drop into a project. So in this instance, I could either add design just as its own new thing from scratch, or I can actually pull in a pre-created designer costs line that is under the plans and documents category, has pricing and all sorts of great things in here, and is linked back to my cost catalog. I'm going to create a couple other cost lines here real quick just so I can showcase what that might be, but I'm going to right click and delete this one just so we can start from fresh again. So under my general requirements, I'm actually going to add a cost item that's a little bit more general called site documents. The reason I'm doing this is I actually want to group all of my site documents, including things like permits and zoning, together by using the cost details underneath that. So this is where we go from a two-tiered estimate into a three-tiered estimate. You can run a two-tiered estimate within Ressio without any problems because all of these fields here can be clicked into and put information put within them. But I actually want to go to that third tier because I like to show additional details. So in this instance, I'm going to add a couple of additional cost details here, and I might put zoning documents. In the next one, I'm going to put permits. And then maybe I'll add one more in here for blueprints. So now I've added in a couple of items here that allow me to then start filling in details. And as you can see here, I linked in trade permits from my cost catalog, so it's automatically filling in some information there. But for example, for zoning documents, I can scroll over and I can start to put in some descriptive information. The description field here will be shared in the specifications and within the proposal if I'm sharing item descriptions, and can also be utilized in other supporting documents like bid packages. So it's important to put a lot of great information in here. The more information you put in here, the more that can be shared with other parties. And I can even open the big editor with this 4 arrows section here And actually, when I click into any of the text, you'll see I actually have rich text formatting capabilities within my description text box. So I can bold, italicize, strike through, do punch checklists or numbered lists, bullet points, things like that. And it's really nice because that formatting will hold throughout the system. In this instance, I'm just going to click out of here and I'm going to put in a little bit more information. One thing I do like to note is that rather than clicking, Ressio being an Excel style estimating system or a spreadsheet style estimating system does allow you to use your arrow keys, your tab keys, and hit enter or simply just start typing into any of these boxes. And I can pull in a pre-existing vendor, for the city of Charlottesville. Maybe I can hit enter here and scroll through and say, okay, who's going to do my blueprints? In this instance, I'll just use city of Charlottesville as well. And maybe my trade permits are also being done by the city of Charlottesville, which is where I live. So that vendor is really helpful when generating bids or when assigning specifications to specific vendors that you can then share information with them. Under the cost code, this is really important, especially if you're going to be using a QuickBooks Online connection, because the cost code, which links up with your products and services code, is how we push information between Ressio and QuickBooks, and it's also how we're formatting our budget in this instance. So here I can say, great, I'm going to go ahead and start typing in, and maybe I'm going to use the building permits category for these. Let's see if I have a blueprints one set up. I don't. So in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and use building permits again. Not exactly true in this instance, but I don't have all of my cost codes built in. I can then put in a cost type. A cost type is a customizable list within Ressio for your account. We have a templated list in here to get you started, however. So in this instance, I'm going to say these are other costs. And then I can navigate over and actually put in the unit costs. For my zoning permits, let's say it's $1,500. For my blueprints, maybe it's $4,500. And then once I go ahead and put in the quantity, as you can see, it's going to start calculating the builder cost subtotal, the builder cost, your profit markups, including the builder fee that I have templated in here, which is at 10%. Though I can always manually adjust these if I need to, or set these at the project level or the company level. One tip I do have here is that when you generally scroll in a system like this up and down, it will just move the screen up and down. But for these wider formatted areas like the estimate or the budget or the schedule, if I hold my shift key and scroll, it'll actually move me left and right, which makes it much easier to navigate through the system. The final category I have here is my customer price, which is showing me my extended unit price as well as my customer price, which is all inclusive of that markup. There are all sorts of other optional columns that I can toggle on and off here, but that's something that we'll cover in the advanced estimating session. So now that we've gone ahead and added a few item details into this project, normally your project is going to have a lot more categories and cost items and cost details. But to simplify this process for this example, I'm going to go ahead and say, great, this is all done and I'm ready to move forward and put a proposal together for my customer. So putting proposals together in Ressio is really straightforward. I can simply go up to the top right-hand corner here under the Create button and go to Create New Proposal. This is also where I'd be able to create new purchase orders or bid requests or selections, which are things that we'll cover in future episodes. So I'm going to hit Create New Proposal, and that's going to navigate me over to the proposal for this project. I can give this a proposal title if I'd like to. I'm going to leave this here for now, and it's automatically populating in the project name, the contact information of who it's been prepared for and who it was prepared by, and then the issue date as well as the valid until date, which is really helpful for keeping clients on task with reminding them when their proposals are due by. So in this instance, I'm going to give this client a little bit more time, and I'm going to say that this is actually going to be due on July 3rd, which is a date that the client will be made aware of when I release this proposal to them. If I'd like to, I can add in some additional description information, and I have that rich text editor capability here as well. And then scrolling down, I have my items, which are all of the items on that estimate have been pulled in here. There's a ton of optional display items that I can change how the data is displayed on the right-hand side here. So for example, if I only wanted to show down to the cost item or even the category or even none and just have a pricing summary, I can do that right from here. I can also choose whether or not to share item descriptions, quantities, and units, and the builder cost. In this instance, I am showing the builder cost because this is set up as an open book project. But in a fixed price project, I do have this as an option in the rare case that you want to show your markup. I can also choose how I share my builder cost, whether it's just on the categories, the cost items, or the details. So again, a lot of flexibility. I can display all of my choices. So if I have multiple choice selections in here, I can actually display the choices in the proposal and even display selection allowances. I can choose whether or not to include signature lines here, choose whether or not to include the generated name, and choose whether or not I want to include the cost summary. So again, these are all optional display items. This allows you to really customize a Ressio proposal to how you want it to display for your clients, for your company. A note that your logo will also pull in automatically from your account settings. I can also choose who prepared this. So if I want to say, hey, another member of my team actually prepared this, Brian Field Helmick, he's my estimator. So I'm going to say that this was actually prepared by him for contracts and contract signatures. That's just an option that I have here. Or I can just say, nope, this was all done by Zach. When I scroll down here, you can see I have my terms and conditions, which can be templated within Ressio and can be as detailed or as simple as you'd like. This is something that we 100% recommend you talk to your legal counsel about. We are not able to make recommendations on contract terms. From here, I also have my signatures where I can have myself and my client. This would be easy for wet signatures. And then we do also have an electronic approval system within Ressio. And then if I'd like to, I can attach in additional files at the bottom of this as well, including those that are displayed publicly or those that are only internal. If I scroll all the way back up to the top here, I can also have messages related to this proposal on the top here. So one of the nice things about Ressio is that pretty much every area in Ressio, every module has the ability to communicate both with your customers, your internal team members, and your subcontractors in the instances of items that are shared with them. So I could communicate back and forth with my client about this proposal, if there's any clarifications that need to be made, if there's any terms that need to be adjusted, and that entire chat thread will be here. So I could just simply say, please see attached terms and documents. And that message would then send over to my customer because I'm in the customer's thread here. A couple other things, I can attach files and photos right from here. I can also print off a copy of this proposal if I'd like to as well, if I work in a wet signature kind of format. But from here, I now have the ability to save this. And then if I want to, I can release this to my customer right from here. And then that's actually going to both send an email to my client to the email address that they have on file with a magic link, which is that ability for clients and vendors to access information from Ressio without having to log in. They can just click the magic link and it will pull them right into the dashboard. And I can actually preview the project as a customer using that little eyeball icon here. And as you can see in this mobile formatted images, I now have a proposal that needs to be approved as the client. So I'd be able to, as the client, click in, see this that I've put together and approve this or decline this right from here. I can communicate from here. I can also print off my own copy of this as well. And if I hit full screen here, I would see the more desktop style enabled client portal. We'll go over the client portal a little bit in more detail in the future, but just wanted to showcase how these items are sent out to your customers and how easy it is for them to simply just hit the approve button and put in some notes and move forward with that process. So now we have an approved proposal. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the estimate here because now that we have this approved proposal, there's one other kind of basic thing that I like to go over, and that is locking the estimate. So within Ressio, you have the ability to lock your estimate, and then any changes that are made to the estimate moving forward would be processed as either client selections or as change orders. So by locking the estimate, we have locked in the original budget that will appear in the budget tab, and we have determined that any adjustments that I make moving forward are going to be processed as client selections or change orders. This is something that we'll go over a little bit in more detail in our advanced estimating and our change orders episodes, but wanted to relate that generally the recommendation is only to lock an estimate once an approved proposal has been received. Because if I were to make any adjustments now, like I said, they'd be processed as change orders. And if I did unlock the estimate, any changes that had been processed since the estimate was locked would actually override the existing budget. So something just to be aware of. If I ever need to get back to that proposal that I've generated for my client, two easy ways to do that is simply to go into the create new proposal or to go to approvals. And I can actually go into the approvals, which is where all my change orders, proposals, purchase orders, bids, and selections live, and click on that proposal two that we've generated, which as we can see, the status is completed, meaning that the client has actually approved this. So that's the highlights of the basic estimating within Ressio. There's a lot more that we can do within the advanced estimating episode, all sorts of optional display items on our estimates, all sorts of additional features and tools that can be utilized, but that will be gone over in a future episode. If you have any questions about the estimating or proposal capabilities of Ressio, please feel free to reach out to your coach or to our support team. Thanks.